I'm well into my essays now. Yet even today, when the night wind slips through my windows, I hear it, the sharp, tearing scream of steel. The same sound that, back in 1943, marked the death sentence of my submarine. And now, with age tightening around my chest and the end drawing near, I must confess one final truth. That night, deep beneath the Atlantic, we saw something no one ever believed. And it was not German. My name is Thomas Hale, and at 87, maybe 90, depending on which doctor you ask, I live alone in a small wooden house at the edge of a quiet forest, far from any shore. I chose this place for a reason. After the war, after that night, I couldn't stand the sight of open water, couldn't stand the whisper of waves curling against rocks. Even now, I keep every window locked, every curtain drawn tight, because the sound of the wind sometimes mimics the distant push of the sea. And when it does, my hands begin to shake. I once served as signalman second class aboard the USS Valiant. My duties were simple on paper: operate the radio room, encrypt and decrypt messages, maintain constant communication with command. And on nights when our sonar technician was overwhelmed or sick, I would help monitor the pings echoing across the dark Atlantic floor. I was younger then, gentle, soft-spoken, maybe even hopeful. But war has a way of carving pieces out of a man, and what was left of me after 1943 has never truly healed. I suffer from insomnia. My hands tremble when I try to write. I wake drowning in nightmares of water filling my lungs, nightmares that feel more like memories than dreams. And every December 17th, the date our submarine disappeared from the world, I light a single candle on my kitchen table for the men we lost, for the brothers I failed. I carried this story like a weight in my chest for 70 years. I whisper into the stillness. The Navy forced us into silence. But the soul carries its own truth. I switch on my old audio recorder, adjust my hearing aid, and inhale deeply before beginning. This wasn't a German encounter, I warned softly. This was something older, bigger, and far angrier. I suppose, before I take you into the darkness of that December night, you should know the people who were with me, the men whose faces still visit me when sleep refuses to come. First, there's me, Thomas Hale. I was just 19 then, thin as a rail, soft-spoken, the kind of boy who listened to every creak, every tab, every distant echo inside that steel coffin we called a submarine. Sounds were my world. I noticed them before I noticed danger, before I noticed fear. Even now, decades later, I still describe memories through noises: the hum of engines, the trembling steel, the pulse of the ocean pressing in from all sides. Fear lived deep in me even back then, and my thoughts, well, they never stopped whispering. Maybe that's why I survived. Maybe that's why I'm cursed to remember. Then there was Captain Roland Mercer, a man in his mid-40s, carved out of grit and old stories, calm, intense, and loyal beyond reason. He never abandoned his men, not even when everything told him to run. He believed the sea had moods, that it remembered. Superstitious, maybe, but wisdom often hides in superstition. Before the end, he told me, make sure the world knows we fought till the end. I hear those words every day. My closest friend aboard the Valiant was Ensign William Will Carter, 21, full of bad jokes and bright smiles that didn't belong in wartime. He treated me like an older brother, though he was barely 2 years older. He broke tension like it was his duty, and losing him carved a hollow I never filled. His sacrifice became the ghost that stayed longest. Chief Engineer Doyle Harris, 38, had no patience for humans but worshipped machines. Rude, brilliant, always covered in grease, he could hear the submarine's suffering the way I heard fear in the air. He was the first to realize something was wrong, truly wrong. This isn't German, he whispered long before the others understood. Lieutenant Walter Briggs, the XO, lived by the rulebook. Suspicious, stiff, paranoid by nature, he unraveled slowly as the impossible closed in. Fear pushed him past reason, past loyalty, until mutiny seemed like sanity to him. And then there was the unknown presence. Not a creature, not a machine, not something I can draw or properly name. It moved in ways nothing should move, fluid yet deliberate, enormous yet silent. We knew it only through metal scraping, sonar distortions, pressure shifts, and a low, vibrating hum that seemed to crawl into our bones. The nightmare that stole our submarine never showed its true face, and maybe that's why it still haunts me. The story begins at the present day, with old Hale sitting alone at his wooden table, setting up a dusty tape recorder. His hand shakes so badly he has to steady the device twice. He mutters that the Navy kept the file sealed for decades, and that he is the last man alive who knows what really happened. With a long, trembling breath, he presses the red button and begins telling the story that has aged him more than time ever could. Back in December of 1943, the USS Valiant prepared to depart under bitter, knife-sharp winter winds. The submarine's interior was cramped, the metal walls slick with condensation, the air thick with diesel fumes and the sharp sting of burning oil. The crew moved slowly, exhausted even before leaving port. Captain Mercer gave a short, steady speech reminding them of duty and silence. Carter joked that the ocean was cold enough to freeze their bones, trying to lighten the mood. As night fell, they slipped beneath the Atlantic, beginning their first patrol. Life inside the submarine followed a routine that slowly began to unravel. Hale describes the mornings as metallic gray hours filled with drills, cold bread, canned meat, and the constant weight of claustrophobia pressing down on every man aboard. Fear of German U-boats hovered over them like a shadow. Meanwhile, Chief Engineer Harris repeatedly complained that the pressure readings were behaving strangely. The crew brushed it off at first until minor electrical failures began creeping in, lights blinking in ways they shouldn't. The first strange contact came unexpectedly. Sonar picked up something enormous, far larger than any recorded vessel, but there was no engine noise, no identifiable signature. Before they could analyze it, the object vanished in an instant. Briggs insisted it was a German prototype, but Captain Mercer whispered coldly, "Nothing that big moves that quietly." The second encounter was worse. Lights flickered violently. The metal beneath their feet vibrated as if touched by something colossal. The entire ocean around them fell into an unnatural silence. Then something passed directly under the hull, so close the entire submarine groaned. The sonar screen blazed white. Captain Mercer immediately ordered silent running. Hale describes the passing mass as like a mountain of iron moving beneath the dark. Fear grew rapidly. Briggs became unstable, yelling at shadows. Carter kept cracking jokes, trying to stop morale from collapsing. Hale began hearing faint knocking sounds along the outer hull at night, rhythmic, patient, intelligent. Harris warned the captain, his voice cracking. "The pressure readings are impossible. Something is brushing against us." The final sonar reading marked the beginning of the end. The object stopped directly beneath them, stationary, massive, larger than a battleship. No submarine in the world was that size. The sonar emitted distorted screeches like it was being torn apart. Captain Mercer gave the order to prepare for emergency ascent. Too late. A monstrous force clamped onto the submarine. The hull screamed. The entire vessel tilted violently, men thrown from bunks, equipment crashing to the floor. Lights burst overhead, pipes split open, spraying freezing water. Panic rippled through the rows of terrified faces. Harris screamed over the chaos, "It has us! Something has us!" In the radio room, Captain Mercer shouted for Hale to send a message. Any message. Hale's fingers shook violently as he typed, "We found something. Not German." Just as he transmitted it, another violent shock slammed the submarine. The radio blacked out, but before it died, Hale heard a distorted voice, layered and inhuman. "We found you too." The submarine was dragged downward into the abyss. Alarms blared. Depth meters spun out of control. Oxygen fell. Men cried, prayed, clutched each other. Captain Mercer still moved with heartbreaking calm, helping the injured. Water surged into the engineering room. Harris drowned trying to stabilize the valves. Carter refused to leave the others. At the escape tube, Captain Mercer's voice finally cracked. "3 must survive. Hale, you're one of them." Carter forced Hale inside, whispering, "Tell my mother I wasn't scared." The hatch sealed. Hale saw their faces one final time before the tube launched upward. On the surface, Hale floated alone in the freezing night. The ocean was silent, unnaturally calm. Moments later, a long, metallic moan rose from below. Then nothing. No explosion. No debris. The Valiant simply vanished. In the aftermath, the Navy interrogated the survivors, rejected their accounts, and forced them to sign secrecy documents. Families were told it was a mechanical failure. Hale moved far from the sea and spent decades sinking into depression. In the present day, old Hale ends the recording, voice broken, eyes full of tears. He admits he still hears that metallic voice in his dreams. He blows out the candle for his lost crew. His final whisper, "The submarine never returned, but the truth of that night still lives inside me." The first emotional peak came the night Hale pressed his ear to the cold steel wall and heard the faint knocking, soft, patient, almost curious. Each tap echoed through his skull like a warning written in sound. His breath trembled. He knew the ocean shouldn't knock back. Later, when fear began to seep through the submarine like smoke, Captain Mercer walked calmly through the trembling halls, placing steady hands on shaking shoulders, whispering reassurance to terrified men. His voice was the only anchor in a drowning world. Then came Carter, sweet, joking, stubborn Carter. In their final moments together, he clutched Hale's arm and whispered, "You're my brother. You know that, right?" The words hit Hale harder than the crushing depths around them. Carter's smile as he pushed Hale into the escape tube became the most painful memory of Hale's life, one he relived every night since. As the tube launched upward, Hale felt despair clawing at him. He wasn't escaping, he was abandoning. Through the small porthole, he watched the submarine tilt, groan, and sink into the endless dark silently, without bubbles, without flame, like the ocean was swallowing a secret. In the freezing water, Hale felt warm tears roll down his face, mixing with the salt of the Atlantic. He cried not from cold, but from the unbearable weight of survival. Decades later, as an old man, these moments still shattered him. While recording his story, his voice cracked again and again. His hands shook violently. He paused to wipe tears he thought age had dried long ago. And then the final emotional blow, the reveal he had buried for 70 years. Before the radio died, he heard a second transmission. Not from the submarine, but from below. A voice whispering, "We found you too." At first, every man aboard the USS Valiant believed the threat stalking them had to be German. A new U-boat model, a secret weapon, a prototype meant to end the war. Briggs swore the sonar readings proved it. Harris insisted the pressure changes matched mechanical movement. But the more the presence circled them, the more obvious it became that no human enemy behaved this way. Whatever moved beneath them felt like shifting metal, yet swam with the fluidity of a creature. At times it scraped the hull like a machine, and other times it drifted with the slow, deliberate grace of something alive. It was neither animal nor vessel, something between both or far beyond. When the submarine vanished, the Navy buried the truth under classified reports and forced silence. The survivors were told to forget, to deny, to rewrite their memories. Hale obeyed, or at least pretended to, carrying the truth like a sewn in his chest for 70 long, haunted years. The true twist came in a single moment, the final message Hale never shared until now. Just before the radio died, through a burst of static and distortion, a voice spoke from the deep, a voice saying, "We found you too." The story ends in a place of quiet tragedy, an old veteran carrying a wound that time never managed to close. Hale's memories are soaked in grief, regret, and unanswered questions, the kind that echo long after the tape stops recording. Nothing was ever explained, nothing ever confirmed. The ocean kept its secrets, kept its dead, and returned only silence. Hale's voice fades with the same unresolved darkness that swallowed the USS Valiant, leaving behind a haunting truth. Some mysteries were never meant to be solved, only survived.